welcome to another broadcast of The Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst radio network. All past shows are available in podcast form. Visit ArtistFirst.com. And now here they are. We call them the Wise Ones. Your hosts, Michael and Margaret Lyons.
Thank you, Scott. And yes, and we are the wise ones.
No.
No. Well, you know, we're just gonna have to own that. We're gonna talk. We are the wise ones from now on.
What have you been drinking?
Yes, yeah. No. I mean, no. Anyway, well, welcome to the Soul of the Everyman, and tonight's show is, I think, an interesting one. We're going to talk about separation, like the one that's between you guys and us.
Air gaps?
Yes, actually, like the ones that are between. Well, that rather. Separation is usually a word, Margaret, that people have negative connotations for, and what they think about it is, rather when they hear the word, is that you're missing something. Separation is something that you say, well, I wouldn't want to be separated from, my family or my spouse, or I would be lonely, and these things are true, but that's not the kind of separation we're talking about. It's really not necessarily that kind of a physical separation or a separation that occurs, that in essence will be you're missing someone because they're overseas or they're in a place where you can't talk to them easily or whatever. Yes, that is a type of separation, but the one we're talking about here really is a separation that you have to have in order to have a healthy relationship with pretty much anybody. You've got to have boundaries. And the opposite of that, the opposite of separation, is not togetherness. It's more like dependency, or it's really more like codependency. So the separation we're talking about here is the separation that you need in order to be in relationship, where the relationship is balanced and healthy and trading back and forth, where it's not controlling, or it's not passive aggressive, or it's not toxic in many, many different ways. So that's the separation we're talking about here. And we have this really, really boss graphic that we always put up on the website, and that Scott puts up there, and we send him the Wise One radio graphic. So this one is a very interesting little quote. It's unattributed, but we liked it when we saw it, and it goes like this. It says, at some point in your life, you have to realize that there are people that can stay in your heart, but not in your life, or not, in your immediate control. I'm paraphrasing, but what we're really talking about is that through the course of relationships, you have to make sure that you're respecting both the boundaries of yourself and the boundaries of the other. And there are times when those things change, especially when you have children and they're young and they're infants and they can do very little for themselves. The intimacy and the boundaries are very low. You when you're taking care of someone's every bodily need, you're pretty close to them. And when they don't have a lot of wherewithal to make their own decisions, you have to make a lot of the decisions for them. And this is normal and natural. But there are so many instances where that relationship perforce changes over time, but where the individuals in the relationship don't allow or try to fight against that natural change, the separation.
Being able to establish an identity for yourself entails that process where you're born into a relationship with your parents that is completely dependent, and you pretty much, as you get older, you begin to fight to get more and more freedom to make your own decisions. And hopefully by the time you're an adult, you actually have the capacity and the ability to not only make your own decisions, but take charge of your own life.
Mm.
So that's a life that you create. It doesn't mean that you exclude other family members, but you take into account that suddenly you yourself are capable of making your own pathway. We don't all have to march along on the same pathway the same way.
Mm.
And there have been many civilizations like that. You've got to do it this way and this way alone, or, you're not one of us.
Right, groupthink.
Yeah, it's like suddenly you don't have your own identity. It's a group identity.
It's actually worth digressing a little bit. It's actually perfect because, when you have these kind of groupthink examples, it's another sort of way of having a lack of boundaries. You just said it. When people organize themselves in groups, and they can be large or small, and there's this idea of us or them, and this idea of you're either with us or you're against us. Well, the with us means that you have to have conformity, and you have to have this sort of lockstep agreement on everything. And then to the extent that that becomes sort of doctrinaire, or you can say that this becomes sort of a dogma, where you have to do the 7 things: wear your underwear on the outside, have your socks pointed toes, and have your eyebrows shaved off. And you don't do all those things, you're not one of us, and you're cast out. And that those things, whatever silly things they are, and they can be not as silly as those, become sort of a litmus test to whether or not you are of the body, and to the extent that this is a relationship, it's very much a controlling, sort of toxic relationship.
Right. Well, it's as you're maturing from childhood into young adulthood, there's a lot of that in social issues when you're at school.
Mm.
And it's almost a default where you see people automatically, they're like gravitating to other people who seem to be doing the same thing, or they've decided that this is the group where you're the Amanda group. Everybody in the group is named Amanda, so you're all.
I like that. That's a great group to be in. What's your name? Amanda. No, go ahead.
Well, you talk about identity. You're all Amanda. It's like, okay. And you all look alike, and you all talk alike, and you all dress alike.
Well, it clicks.
Right. But, I mean, that's an extreme, if you would. But you see it where people are, okay, we are the jocks, and we are the smart people, and we are the
nerds,
and we are the
cheerleaders.
Just there's a whole range, and this is then the dark group here.
Yeah, the emos or the
right.
goths or whatever they're called.
Right. I mean, there's the goths, and we are the musical ones, and we're the artistic ones, and we're the, this whole range of groupings that happen, and it's interesting to see that evolve in human beings, because when you're little, you're just trying to figure out what the heck is out there, and then suddenly you see people gravitating to these groupings, and it's to deny that that's not almost written into your DNA. I would say you guys are way too mental, because it presents itself. You're in your own way trying to find a reflection of yourself.
Exactly.
In the people or the surroundings around you. So you automatically make these little clicks, and then it goes into the us and them.
Right.
And unless you're taught how to be accepting of other people's differences, it becomes a bone of contention. They'll try to, dominate you. This is the beginning of trying to understand a relationship outside of your family. You fall into that power struggle of, well, I've got it over on you, or I'm better than you, or for whatever reason. Like I'm faster than you, I'm smarter than you, I've got musical talent, I can sing better than, it's like, well, what I'm better at. And it's like, no, that's only an aspect of who you are. There's so much more to you. But are you going to make room for that with other people?
Well, as is often the case, you have like 17 great topics in there, and I want to try to unpack them. No, I think it's great. First of all, the thing you said about the in our DNA, we want to find reflections of ourselves. Absolutely true. And one of the reasons you do that is because you have insecurity of your own individual sort of spark or your individual take on things. You want to hear a reassuring, yes, that's right, that's what we all think.
You want to know, what do I look like to another person?
Exactly. The idea of identity in somebody in the mirror, in somebody that looks like you or talks like you or acts like you or does what you do, there's also a security there. There's sort of a commonality. And if you're, as you said, if your personality is still immature, it's written into our DNA that we want to try and find something that's comfortable, that's outside of your family. At that age, and the age is the sort of the school age, if you will, your family is your first relationships. And you feel accepted, and you know where your place is in there. But then, as you try to separate from that, you find yourself in sort of a world which you don't understand necessarily, or which might reject you. And so, the DNA composition of it is, we don't want to be rejected. We want to be accepted. We don't want to be cast out into the outer darkness. We want to be loved and given some sort of identity in this group or these relationships. And so, the wonderful hunt for identity leads us to these sort of groupings. And then the great point that you brought up on top of all that, because she just like layers them in there, and I have to sit there and go, okay, we're going to. The top point is that you again get into these sort of power over power under struggles, because once you find this group and you find your identity, then within the group there's a certain lack of boundaries, and those boundaries then reestablish themselves into the sort of well, all of us do this, and if you want to be part of us, you have to do this, and there's this sort of hierarchy and power over, and you get, as we all have seen in Saturday afternoon Christmas specials or whatever, there's sort of a bully or one who's leading the group and telling everybody what to do, and sort of enforcing this sort of power over power under. Families have those things too in different types of dynamics, but the scary part is going out on your own and doing your own thing and being your own individual, and that takes time and courage, because boundaries require courage. Yeah. And sort of you have the courage of your convictions, and these are also part of our DNA, but they're more difficult.
Yeah, it's difficult when you're young, because if you don't know who you are, you are so vulnerable. And the funny thing is, the way you treat yourself is pretty much the way other people will treat you.
True.
Seriously, I mean, they all the other kids there are looking for a clue on how to interact with you.
Right.
And you send out these signals on how you think they should interact. So if you are sending out the signal where you're fearful that, I'm going to get picked on, et cetera, et cetera, there's a whole body language that goes on, nonverbal. And young kids and people read this. And they begin, okay, hey, I can pick on this one because of X, Y, or Z. They're not sure. We can make fun of them. We can, and suddenly, oh, this is great, which is truly ridiculous as far as I'm concerned. But that is exactly what winds up happening. Unless you have a strong identity, you know who you are, and they start, they'll poke you. They will always poke, hey, so you didn't do so great on that. Or, oh, well, you're wearing that. And you turn around and you go, well, of course I am. this color is the new Pantone color of the year.
Well, correct, but it is a rare individual at a young age that has that ability. However, you're exactly right. The process of maturation, you find that these initial groupings, which you thought were so important to be part of the jocks or the nerds or whomever, fall away, and you realize that your own the insight of seeing yourself in others means that your insecurities are their insecurities. You have to kind of realize that, yes, we all feel a little insecure, we all feel a little afraid, and we're all looking to try to find our establish. It is exactly as you said. It's how you finally come to realize that how you want to be treated is how you have to treat yourself. If you don't respect yourself, no one will respect you. If you don't love yourself, no one will love you. And that is the end, hopefully the end, of the process of maturation. But those steps in between, people get stuck at. They get stuck at the codependent step of identifying themselves with the group. And they never gather the courage or have the insights to move beyond that. And that's a codependency that doesn't serve you, but yet you can get stuck there. Those and there's many different ways that people people who get stuck. They have to be they have to do what everyone else is doing. They have to be part of the group. They have to wear the things that everyone's wearing, and gosh darn it, Madison Avenue will take advantage of that and try to put you into a group and say, well, everybody your age, of your size, has this watch, and you better get it too. So those dynamics, writ large, become ways to control people.
Right, and it depends on the child. I mean, if you have an independent thinker, they will go their own way, and you can encourage that and try to show the boundaries or how people may interpret whatever their actions or their thoughts are, because an independent thinker doesn't always click with the group. And they can't interpret necessarily very easily what everybody else is thinking. Plus, if they're a little more mature for their age, I just remember getting the question, how come the rest of my classmates, they all do these stupid things? Like, because they want to?
Yes. Right. And I think if we take that point and go back a little bit, the initial relationship of the child is one of dependency.
Right.
And every unique individual human spark is different. So there are those who enjoy dependency.
Right.
There are those who reject dependency, but they look for other things, that they want to latch onto. There are certainly those who are independent-minded and want to forge their own way and have sort of an innate sort of heart for that, a courage for that. But the relationship of parent to child is one that often becomes fraught with these sort of codependent pitfalls. People get stuck. You see it very often where someone will say, I'm 30 years old, and every time I go to my parents' house, I still feel like I'm 12, or I feel like I'm 10, because they never change the way they treat me. And maybe there's certainly a period of time when people want to rebel in their preteen and teenage years, but yet there's this resistance can be on both sides to letting a relationship mature past the dependency stage. So, from the point of view of having been children and from the point of view of having been parents, we have sort of the insight to look back and say, it was very important to model independence, yet it's also very sort of difficult to realize that you have to draw back. You have to give. You can't just let people claim independence, so they will, but you also have to give it. So the idea of enforcing boundaries is not just letting people go off and be on their own, and then you're the helicopter parent or the one that's running around all the time to make sure they don't fall, making sure they wipe their nose. No, you need to say, well, I need a boundary. Now I have to wall myself back. I have to draw myself back and say, you know what? Yeah, they're going to fail. They're going to fall. And I could run in and save them. But I shouldn't. God, I shouldn't do that because they need to be on their own at this point. And that balancing act is one of the most difficult challenges of parenting, is to know when, and there's some things that are sort of milestones, if you will, but really to know when from your heart. Again, this is a heart voice, right? It's not a head voice. This is the heart voice. It's time. It's time to let go.
Mm-hmm.
And it's even saying it, you can feel the heart echo. No, it's time to let go in relationships, because that's the boundary. It's knowing when the heart says, we still love each other, but our lives are now separate. Our lives are going in different directions. Because neither of us will be here forever, but one of us is probably leaving before the other. And you've got to be your own person.
Right. It's part of the growing up. You want them to be able to have confidence in their decision.
Yeah.
And they need to understand what it is to make a mistake. The ability to make a mistake and rebound from it, not to negate it like that mistake never happened. It's like that's part of life, understanding that the things that you do don't always work out. But what is your response? What do you choose in that moment when it's not working out the way you thought it should?
Right. And I think you also have to give them the ability, or rather the freedom, to fail.
Mm-hmm.
To really screw up and not be able to make it better, and realize that, failure is part of life too. And you can't count on people to just come in and swoop down and make it all better and pick you up and dust you off and wipe your nose and send you on your way. Because that freedom to succeed is freedom to fail on your own.
And I think, going back a bit, that if you have parents that are still treating you like you're so young and you are an adult, you have been making your own decisions, but you come back into this environment where suddenly they want to do everything for you, and that, when they get older, the parents get older, and suddenly they can't do everything that they used to be able to do. And suddenly the body is disintegrating in some way, shape, or form. Or an illness strikes. Something happens. What is their response going to be? Because they're standing there going, I have no answer for this. I can't avoid this. You can't avoid growing old. That is an opportunity for the family to come together and say, it's okay. Believe it or not, we've been maturing. And we understand. Or if you haven't trained them and they're still, your adult children are acting like small children, this is a big wake-up call.
Yeah. Well, and I just, again, to go back, the temptation to infantilize or to keep your children young and make them dependent and keep them dependent is because you want to be loved and you want to be needed and you want to be what you were to them before. They're everything. And there's some pain in separation. There's some loss. When you say, they are independent of me, that means that they aren't looking to you for their every answer. You're not the star that shines in the morning and sets in the evening to them. You are a piece of their life, but not their whole life. And they're going to be have relationships with others, and they're going to have their own children. They're going to have their own independent lives, independent of you. So there's loss there. That's why people don't like separation, because it feels there's some pain there. But yet, if you don't do that, you are damaging them in ways both subtle and great. And you're making them so that when you do, and you just said it, when the inevitable march of time, guess what, people? We really aren't going to be here forever. You're giving them no tools. You're making the fact that you will leave this earth into an earth-shattering, life-shattering event, because you've told them your whole lives that I'm always going to be there to wipe your nose and pick you up. And if they really believe that, that's a terrible, damaging thing to do to someone. Now, it's damaging on both sides, because you yourself are lying to yourself, and you yourself are are in essence placing your life in control of another life.
Right.
And we know it's wrong, no matter how sweet it seems, to not allow separation, to not build in the boundaries, to not let them grow up, is the wrong thing. It's a contract that you had with this child when they were young, an unwritten contract that I will help you, I will give you what you need, but then you're going to grow and we're going to separate, and you're going to become your own individual person, and I'm going to love you, but not keep you. I'm not, the whole idea of the apron strings, right? That was the whole idea that you couldn't separate from your mother or your father. You aren't a fully independent adult person if you haven't made that separation and changed the relationship, so that you're not. Yes, you're their son or you're their daughter, but now they're your peers. They're your friends. They're people who you owe a great debt. You owe your life to them. But yet, it isn't something that you call in and say, well, I bought you that stuff 10 years ago, so I own you forever. That's what people do?
Yeah.
I own you. You owe me your life. So then I'm going to call in that marker all the time. That's the most toxic of toxic relationships.
Yeah, no, it's true. As if you were a commodity.
Or a slave.
I mean, you have no rights then. And this is also an aspect of, and I've said this before, Asian families, you do not teach independence. You teach dependence. And the dependence is on the family. So that is a whole different mindset, because you're getting trained into, you do everything for the family. You don't do it for you. So whatever talents you may have has got to be put into the family. And you, at that point, you're not allowed really to make your own decisions, because the family's going to decide what way you should go. How can you possibly understand what the world is? We will show you, and we will mold you into the best you can be for our family's sake.
It wasn't just Asian; it's old world European. It was that trammeling of the individual to the will of the family, la familia. It feels wrong to us, but that was often done and is still being done.
Yeah, and frankly, in the Western world, women at least have a say on who they're going to marry. But marriages used to be arranged, and women had no voice. And Western women was like, oh, they probably would have killed me. This is their natural response when, if you bring up the subject, you're like, can you let go of your mouth for a minute and try to put yourself into that position where you have no voice and no ability to make decisions on your own? Your family's going to tell you who you're going to marry, you're going to be sold to, because it's a political marrying of one family to another. Freedom here in the United States and the Western world is an amazing gift.
And it's a gift that comes from separation. And let's separate ourselves from this topic for a few minutes. We're going to go back to the studio. We're going to have some absolutely great commercials, and then we'll come back and talk more about separation.
There is a Reaper is the story of 5-year-old Christopher Aaron and his life-changing struggle with leukemia. Winner of both the Indy Bragg Medallion as well as the reader's favorite silver medal for memoir, There is a Reaper has more than 100 Amazon book reviews and a 5-star rating. It has been described as life-changing, spiritual, a must-read. Just released on Audible and iTunes, this memoir is also available in paperback and on Amazon Kindle for only 99 cents. Get your copy of this life-changing memoir today.
The Timeless Esoterica radio program with Dr. Bruce is broadcast on the fourth Monday of every month at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern on ArtistFirst.com. We explore topics including the paranormal, alien life, mysteries, conspiracies, hidden history, oddities, and much more. Each show will feature a special guest with exciting and thought-provoking discussion. Always keep an open mind, an open heart, live forever, and remember Dr. Bruce believes in you.
Rick Riordan fans, love mythology with plenty of action and humor? Destroyer's Blood is for you. The new fantasy novel by award-winning author Michael Lynes is book 1 of the adventures of Dev Kalian, the Blood series. Follow Dev and his magic sword Betrayer as they are suddenly attacked and forced to return to Olympus to fight in a war they want no part in. The world of men and gods is about to be destroyed by Zeus's ancient foe, and only Dev and Trey can stop him. The conflict never stops, and the amazing twist will have you on the edge of your seat. Act now while the ebook is on sale for only 99 cents. Destroyer's Blood is available on Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere. And while you're there, get the free prequel, It's in the Blood, available for a limited time.
Hi, this is Minette Lauren, author of Race for the Sun. Do you believe in guardian angels? Check out book 1 of my Soul Watcher series. It can be found on Amazon.com or anywhere fine books are sold. Go to www.minettelauren.com, and you are listening to the ArtistFirst Radio Network.
The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed is the latest book from Michael Lynes, the award-winning author of There is a Reaper. Featuring 13 original stories, this wide-ranging collection has everything. Forbidden love, gods versus demigods, weird invading aliens, sexy seductive artificial intelligence, and unusual passion between the living and the dead. All set amidst fantastic worlds of pain and loss and boundless joy. From the sublime to the macabre to the bittersweet, The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed will leave you breathless with laughter, brimming with tears, trembling with suspense. Available now on Amazon.com, Google Play, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere.
You are listening to The Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst Radio Network. Want to send us a question or comment? Hit us up at dj@artistfirst.com. Let's get back to your hosts, Michael and Margaret Lynes.
Thank you very much, D-Man. Hey, did you miss us? We were right here. Right here. But that little separation was very important to the structure of the show, and we let you guys go off and do whatever you wanted to do, and now we're back. So get down next to the radio, and we have to listen now. Anyway, so tonight's topic, if you missed the first half hour, is we're talking about separation, and it's really a very important thing to have in human relationships. And we've talked a little bit about the child and parent relationship, but I think as adults, there's another sort of separation trap that we run into, which is that in relationships, we all know people who have sort of codependent or controlling types of relationships, and what there are many different ways that this can play out, but almost all of them suffer from a lack of boundaries, and that's the most important thing. You said it in the last half hour, Margaret, where that how you treat yourself is how others will treat you. Well, there's a certain type of person that attracts the wrong kind of lady or the wrong kind of man, and they get this person. The people that they attract are always trying to control them or trying to become their have power over them or tell them what to do, because they themselves don't have the boundaries around their own relationships. They attract this kind of controlling, toxic relationship. So boundaries are very important.
And, well, it could also be that this is what they learned when they were young. They only saw relationships that were codependent. And when you're young and you see this, you're thinking, oh, well, that must be the way it's done. And especially abusive relationships, you hear that the man had seen this happening to his mother and his father, and he swore he wasn't going to do that. But as he gets older, he starts doing it, and he can't believe that he's doing it.
Right.
And it's something, as you become more aware and realize that, wait a minute, I'm doing what I said I would never do.
Right.
You really have to stop in that moment and just find what your heart is saying and understand that that kind of pain that you endured as a child is in you. And it's got to be addressed. It's got to be brought out in the sunlight, placed on the table and looked at and acknowledged that this hurt. Seeing this happening in front of my eyes as a helpless child, this hurts my heart. It breaks it. Mm-hmm. And usually as a child, your first reaction is, well, I must be the reason for this. It must be me that caused this to happen.
And if I might stop you right there, because of the lack of separation, mm-hmm. In that relationship, you internalize. Mm-hmm. Go ahead, sorry.
So as you mature, that's when you get the hints of, wait a minute, I am not walking down that road. I'm going to change something. What do I need to change? And that's when it all begins. This is when your true self-discovery comes in. You're not what you had seen made an example in front of you. You're not what your environment says. You have to really make the decision that you and the things that have happened to you are two different things. Your identity is not what happened to you. And when you do that, when you realize that very difficult mirror that was reflected into your face saying that this is who you are, this stuff that happened in the family, this is who you are, and you say, no. Your heart will tell you this is not right. I will not receive that. I am not the horror that I see in front of me. I am not the fear that's dominating this family. I am not the anger. I am something more. And you have to make that distinction.
Well, and you touched on something which is wonderful. All those points are exactly correct. And what the basis of healing is, in many ways, separation. When what you just talked about, all the situations where you internalize abuse or you internalize fear and you internalize these things, and then you replay them because you don't have any separation from the trauma and who you are. They are one. And so one of the ways you heal from these things is to, as you said, take them out, put them in the sunlight, put them out on the table, talk to somebody about them, and then realize that that is not you. That's not identity with you. That you can cut away, which is a process of separation, push that stuff away from you, saying, this is not me, this happened to me, this is not me, this is a thing that was in my past. You build very consciously, one of the therapeutic techniques here is to build separation between your past and you. And then you have to find a new you, a real you, the heart you. But one of the reasons that people suffer from trauma and then also replay trauma in their lives and do exactly what you said, which is, I swear I would never do what my father, mother, whatever did, and yet you do it, is because there's no separation internally between the trauma and you. And so that when you then find yourself in that situation, unbidden, it comes up. Unbidden, it roars to life without volition, it seems, because there isn't the separation. So the scalpel of healing is to separate those two.
And it's also understanding that the relationship you had with your mother and father, you've equated those incidents with love.
Yes.
Okay, you think that this is the way you express love, and it's not. And if you check with your heart knows that this is not how you express love. There's something wrong here. And it's owning the fact that it's wrong, even though it's being done by members of your family that you love. This is wrong. And they may say they're doing this out of love, but it's not real, true, unconditional love.
Right.
And that's something that we all search for as human beings. Unconditional love. I am accepted as I am. Because I am. And the vastness of your humanity. So it's funny because the phrase has been hijacked, but this safe space to be who you are.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And they're talking about, well, it's your fears. I was like, no. Safe space is to be you away from what you defined as you. It's almost an addiction to this concept of who you think you are. You keep measuring yourself to this mental construct of who you think you should be.
Mm.
And it's separating from that and understanding that has no heart in it. Concept of, well, you check the boxes, okay, I have this talent, or I can do this particular trick, or I physically say you're handsome, or you're pretty, or I've got, this color hair, blah, 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 blah. It's like, no, that's not who you are. You are not your physical, like you're an endomorph. It's like, no, body type, no.
Well, I think what the wonderful thing that you just said, and I want to make sure people don't miss it, is that the tendency, the tropism, the movement of our psyche is to try and identify ourselves by what is around us, by reflection, the family identification. And you said we have to realize that isn't love, because it was conflated with love. When people are raised in abusive relationships, they conflate home and family and love with abuse. And then when you have the kind of things that you were just saying, where they identify with a particular group, the blonde hairs, the Adrians, whatever you said before, the group identification is again a misidentification of yourself as the group, or yourself as all the blonde people, or all this. So you you tie yourself to this group behavior, whether it's a family group or a sort of external group that you want to become part of, and then you no longer have your heart truth, you have your head truth of who you are. And then everyone in that group does these things. When we have a problem, we yell, scream, and throw things. Or when we want to act, we all act in this particular fashion. We have to have this car and this house and this thing and that. So those lacks of separation, those bindings, because they are bindings, strangle who you are, or kind of force you into a mold. And then those things have power. Years and years and years ago, the abuse occurred, but in the exact moment of now, your now is hijacked by the years and years and years ago events, which are not separated from. There's still a connection. So those people who may be long dead, or certainly not even anywhere close to you, still have a hold on you, on your reactions. And without separation, that toxicity metastasizes. It comes from way back in your past, using you as a vehicle, and metastasizes and affects people in the current now, and then carries on. We've all seen where things carry through generations.
Right.
And they carry through generations in just this way, through lack of separation. What keeps a fire from roaring through the whole forest? Fire breaks, separations. You have to stop it at some point. And there's pain there. You have to say, that's not me. Ow, who am I? I thought I was this. I thought I was that. No. Push it away, but that takes pain and it takes courage.
Right. You have to step out on your own and establish yourself.
And get rejected.
Mm-hmm. It's not going to be an easy path, because we really do want to be surrounded by reflections or familiar tendencies, or
comfortable.
Mm-hmm. And if you ask your heart whether or not this is true or this is right, it's interesting, because you know that for that particular society, that is considered the right way to do things. But if you go to your heart will tell you that it's taking advantage of people within that group. It'll just tell you truth, like, no, this is an abuse of power. So what do? You have to make a conscious decision at that point. And making that conscious decision does mean that many times you will be persecuted for that decision. What do you mean you're not going to do that? How dare you not do that? That's very disrespectful of our culture. You should be doing this because that's what we said is the way to show respect for your culture. And if you do that, they will pretty much throw you under the bus.
Oh yeah, huge rejection.
Yeah, no. It's an all or nothing thing when it comes to a culture or a group think. They want to kill you.
Yes.
And I find that fascinating. It's like, just because I don't agree, you want to wipe out my existence. What is that?
Well,
except absolute hate.
Well, the fine point on it is the groupthink has an existential component to it, in the sense that it says, if you don't agree with us, then we feel threatened in our existence, and we have to strike, we have to lash out with killing force against things that don't agree with us. You see it played out small and large whenever you have groupthink. If you are one of us, you have to do everything that we say within very, sometimes extremely strict limits. And if you are not one with us, then you are the outer darkness to be fought tooth and nail to the death, because it really comes down to fear, existential fear, as well as this wonderful kind of, like you said, all or nothing, them or us. You either agree with us or you have to be destroyed.
Right, and if you don't agree with us, they will try to shame you into agreeing with us, and that's the real weapon that is used on you. Is they're going to try to shame you into doing what everybody else is doing, and if that still doesn't work, then they want to kill you.
Shun you, expel you, kill you.
Right, and you just sit there and you go, okay, what is this that we're seeing? Because that is a tendency across the board, all throughout the world. What is that? You know, people want to say, well, it was a development, evolutionary development, you know, to try to get tribes to be able to continue to exist. But I'm sitting here going, no.
I think if you extract it, Margaret, into a relationship of two, you have a relationship of two which are two equals, and this is a non-toxic relationship, and you trade energy back and forth. But when you start to make it a power over relationship, where it's really a relationship of one controlling the other, then you suborn will one to the other, and the controller, it's really a unitary relationship of taking over the will of another to whatever extent it is, and you can get to the point where you want to have everything that is the other is actually you. You are giving nothing to them and everything to you. So all actions have to be to your benefit, and everything that is done has to be approved and controlled by you. It's the absorption rather than a true flow back and forth.
It's a description on the way life proliferates. You can be a viable, healthy person or a group of people, organism that you're growing and flourishing, or you can be a cancer.
Or a parasite.
But that's what I mean. Cancers, they eat and eat and eat everything that's around them, and they have to look for other things, other places, other cells to feed off of without giving anything back.
Right. That's such a great analogy. The toxicity, the lack of separation is a cancerous, toxic relationship because it takes and gives nothing back. It looks, and these types of people oftentimes will go from host to host, psychopathic type relationships, or relationships of codependency, or relationships of parasitism, or consumption. You know, you want to take the other, control and consume the other,
right,
and then move on to the next consumption. These things can be, you know, as sort of innocuous but still wrong as sort of this sort of passive aggressive, or as horrible as a serial killer.
Right.
Who really is serial killing has nothing to do with killing. It has everything with power.
Right.
You know, they're trying to completely take away everything from that other person, including their life.
Right. And that's what they feed off of.
Yes.
You know, they produce no life of their own. And that's really what we're here for, is to participate and begin to produce a life of your own. And it's a beautiful thing when that starts happening. Now, other people may not agree with the life that you've created, Oh, well.
Oh, well, but that takes courage.
But it's part of the diversity of living down here. Now, if you are not creating your own life, you have to look and see, well, am I feeding off of other people by doing this type of living? Because that is the way to begin to understand that this reflection that you're searching for is one of almost consumption, immolation. You you want to be the host, or you are the parasite.
You're the parasite, right?
Well, some people want to be the host.
Some people, you're absolutely right. There are those whose relationships, whose lack of separation means that they want to be the host, and control that way, But let's back up a little bit. So separation is key to health, and I think you start with the separation of yourself from everything else, in the sense that you want to put the boundaries around your heart to know yourself. Know that, yes, you can be reflected in others, but it's not to lose yourself in others or to try to control others to make them identical to yourself. You have to realize that yourself and your boundaries are the beginning of identity. And then with identity, remember we also talk about relationships where you have one fragment plus another fragment. It's like a quarter plus a quarter doesn't give you a half. A quarter plus a quarter gives you less, even at the end of the day. But the one being completely a complete identity to one other complete identity, 1 + 1 = infinity, not 1 + 1 = 2 in real balanced relationships.
Relationship is a multiplicative process. It is not an additive, so that a half times a half gives you a quarter.
Right.
And 1 times 1
gives you 1.
1.
Exactly. So the separation is the way to become whole, both in relationship and internally. Dependency and fragmentation and parasitism and control, power over, power under, are all ways of reducing who you are to a group, to someone who controls, who someone is controlled, who doesn't have an individuality.
Right.
Who's a fragment.
Right. You're partial. You are not a whole human being. But you wind up only identifying with parts of you, not claiming the wholeness of who you are.
Right.
And the wholeness of who you are doesn't need to have the environment tell it what it is. It's more, what would be the word?
Independent.
Autonomous. You will function.
And attractive. The whole person is an attractive person. And I think the whole show, as attractive as it was, has come to an end. And you, as the most attractive person in the room, can end it for us.
Okay.
So well, I'll just separate back here.
Well, we've reached the end of the Soul of the Everyman. And I'm Margaret.
And I'm Michael.
Thank you for listening.